Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Season 4 of the Call It Anything podcast. I'm Jack, joined by
Mr. Solis.
All right, and so we are back here today. Sir, how have you been since the last time we talked?
I've been good. We had a Thanksgiving week off that, I rested a lot through. Resting always means I didn't do anything. I didn't go anywhere. But I stayed in, spent time with family, ate a lot of food, only gained about 1.5 pounds over the course of the week. And we're going to finish the semester strong as always. How about you, sir? How you doing?
I've been doing pretty well. As I was telling Mr. Solis, before we started recording, I've just been, what's the way I want to put it? Just been busy with school, obviously, keeping up with that. What was the other thing I was going to say? I've been pretty busy with school, but other than that, as I was telling Mr. Solis, I went to Full Gear with my brother, which was a fun event to attend. In all honesty, I've just been excited about the end of the year. I know a lot of people typically don't get excited about the end of the year, because of, like it seems like time passes us by so quickly and all that. But I'm always excited because it's always my favorite time to talk about stuff like, basically a recap of the year, like looking back fondly on it, even though it's barely ending, like the year hasn't ended, but I'm already thinking about, all the good times, like all the great music, all the great wrestling, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
So it's always my favorite time because it's like, I just get to reflect back, and it also is the time where I'm rushing through trying to make sure I try and consume as much of that content as possible so that I don't feel guilty for leaving it off list, Like a lot of times...
Oh, I miss so much, Jack, I'm going to come up with a top 10 that's uniquely catered to the shows I found the time to see that I didn't get spoiled for online. And I'm excited to share that with you in December.
Yeah.
Also, so I'm going to have a top 10 list, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to make a top 10 Will Ospreay matches because the man has just had an absolute, banger of a year that I think I can come up with literally 10 and leave some off even.
Yeah.
So just for fun, a literal top 10 Will Ospreay matches from top to bottom.
That's going to be your number 10, every Will Ospreay match from the year. Oh man, but yeah, I'm super excited for that. But getting right into it, because there's so much to talk about from a show that was only about 5 matches long.
Yeah, and a very comfortable 3 hours. It was as long as a Raw with fewer commercials,
And it went by super quickly. Like when it ended, I was like, man, that felt really short,
Yeah.
But obviously what we're talking about is WWE Survivor Series 2023. War Games returning as well. Wasn't just a one-off from last year. We got it returning.
So many returns, Jack. So many returns. I'll tell you the first big one we're going to celebrate, and that's Black Sabbath's War Pigs. Yeah. They love their Black Sabbath song.
Yeah, that's back. Like I said, War Games is back. Now, my only issue with War Games, at least being back for in this instant, my only issue is it's something that we saw a lot in NXT at times and other stipulations that kind of got tied to pay-per-views for a certain month, such as Hell in a Cell. And that's that sometimes War Games can feel a bit forced in a sense, But I'm not complaining because War Games is a great stipulation. But for example, with our first match, as we see with one of the teams, it felt very much like assemble whoever you can for one team, It's funny, if you look back at the times of NXT, it always felt that way for the babyface team especially, where it's it's always the Undisputed Era versus an assemble of the different baby faces on the roster at the time.
Who did the Undisputed Era run into, run amok, in the 3 months prior? But I'll tell you what, we're talking about Damage Control. That's Bayley, Asuka, WWE Women's Champion Io Sky, Kairi Sane, And that's it. It's 4, right?
Yeah.
Versus the babyface team of Charlotte Flair. Babyface team? Okay. I'm not watching SmackDown, so I missed something. Shotzi Blackheart. Who else?
Becky.
Oh, Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch, right?
And
I'll tell you what, I applaud their efforts, right? Because most every woman does have an axe to grind with Damage Control.
Yeah, and funny you mentioned, the whole thing about watching, not watching SmackDown is, I believe during this time and our last pay-per-view, I think, if I can remember correctly, unless I'm remembering wrong, Damage Control is a much bigger group now than what we last saw.
So big.
Because if I remember correctly, the last time we talked was the event in Saudi Arabia, and that's when we saw the return of Kairi Sane, and she officially joined, I think it was like on the next SmackDown, and then Asuka ended up joining as well.
Correct.
So a lot has changed in just the short month that has passed since Crown Jewel.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, we got, and that's something I would agree with as well. That I was telling my dad, I was like, well, at least a bunch of these people have beef with Damage Control, and not to spoil the ending, but when my dad and I were going over our pre-match predictions, I was telling them Damage Control very much needs this win because they've spent ever since their inception losing to the different baby faces on the other team. They lost They lost to Bianca, if you remember Bayley constantly challenging her. I can't remember if they fought against Becky. I'm pretty sure they fought against Charlotte, as you were mentioning, that like they all have some type of axe to grind. But I was just thinking, I was like, they've done a lot of losing. They need a real big, momentum win, You know
what also was weird about this match? The baby faces had the advantage. I just remember somebody saying it doesn't make any sense for the baby faces to have the advantage. It should always be the heels, like Undisputed Era, and later the Judgment Day. I don't know how they got it, but they did. And when it comes to the women's War Games match, I think it was like a poll, and of course the fans were gonna give it to Becky. So yeah, they were always mostly on top for most of the match.
Yeah, especially when you saw them double teaming Bayley, and it was just like, this is weird. Isn't she supposed to be the heel? I always get confused when they switch up that dynamic because I'm pretty sure they did it last year as well.
Interesting. Yeah, Bayley goes the distance. She's the first one in that cage.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember. Oh, there was the spot where Dakota Kai slips her the kendo stick.
Yeah, Dakota Kai should have done more. She was quite the X Factor as, a member of the team that's outside the cage.
Yeah. We also saw when Shotzi came in, they introduced the trash can and a bunch of chairs. EO brought in a chain with her.
The crowd, the Chicago crowd, is here tonight to have a good time. And they are chanting as loud as anyone could possibly chant for anything for a table.
Yeah, they wanted the table, and Damage Control playing up the heel act. They just weren't bringing it out for the longest time.
Asuka does it dirty, right? She pulls it half out and goes, "No," and it's great. And it's so good.
There was also Kairi, for whatever reason, but hilarious nonetheless, deciding to skip her way all the way down to the ring when it's her time to enter.
I loved it. It was a highlight of the match for me. List any spots, Jack. Number 2 for me is Kairi skipping to the ring. She's like Kawaii Pirate, even as a heel.
Yeah, that's the funniest thing I've found since Kairi's return. When I see the various clips, it's she's trying so hard to be a heel with Damage Control, but she so very much wants to still be a face that plays to the crowd and all that. I've seen so much of her, especially during her entrances where it's she's very much playing to the crowd, and it's man, it's almost she I have no doubt she could play heel, but it's just funny seeing that that battle between wanting to play to the crowd versus like
It's a lot like the Sami Zayn heel, you know? You don't always have to be like scowly and mean, you know?
Yeah.
It's a different kind of evil. And they could hear an Asuka do like the evil laugh, you know?
Yeah. But any other spots that stood out to you, sir?
The big one, right? The big one that Michael Cole and Corey Graves even referenced when they bring the trash can in. We go, hey, we've seen Io Sky and a trash can make some magic in a match like this before, haven't we? Little do they know, we're going to recreate history tonight, aren't we, Jack?
Yep. Recreate history a lot of times during this event.
Absolutely. Io Sky on the top of the cage with that trash can, and she's playing it up to the crowd too, right? She's like real slowly putting it on her body. So now she's standing on a cage, wearing a trash can, and she jumps. And on Instagram, I sent you that clip to Creed.
Oh yeah,
can you take me higher? Oh, that was so good.
Yeah, that was real fun. I'm trying to remember other spots, but I don't know if you felt the same way. But like towards the end, it felt like they were kind of rushing certain spots to me, at least.
Well, there were certain spots that certainly didn't work. I don't think, right?
Yeah.
There was a couple of head scratchers, or gosh, if that had worked, that would have looked really cool.
There was a head scratcher for, I can't remember if it was Io or Asuka when Charlotte did her moonsault off the top of the cage. One of the two, I forgot who it was. Someone ate a knee straight to the top of the dome.
Really?
Yeah. It looked kind of bad. It
must have been. I don't think it's Asuka, because when I watched that clip and they play it again, right? Asuka's one of those people that fall over even though she's not touched at all.
I think it was Io, because like for like the next minute you see her like laying down, and she just has her hand on her head the entire time, like she gets kneed right in the top of the head.
Hey, a big spot is the reminder that like Charlotte and Becky aren't on good terms and haven't been on good terms, like in real life and on TV, right? But after sort of taking it to Damage Control, they almost, I think, make up, hug, to a big pop from the crowd.
You mean the spot that during the press conference Becky made the match all about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of people were talking about that as a way of like throwing shade, in a sense. They were like, instead of talking about the match, she was really upping the fact that her and Charlotte are like on good terms now.
And I don't know where they get these people, right, asking questions. Two of them back to back. I hate the second person even more than the first. They were like, so are you guys going to go over the tag team championships? And they're like, hey man, slow down. I'm like, that's what you ask? That's what you ask? I'm
telling you, sir. Let me in that media room. Let me in that media room. I'll ask
Let us. Hello, we're the Call It Anything podcast. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, I got it right. Hey, this is Mr. Solis from the Call It Ready podcast. Right? Tell me about that Jeopardy appearance.
Oh, man.
Charlotte, you're staler than your father's energy drink.
Becky, how did you feel about Seth Rollins' last meal? Oh, man. But
a fun match. A lot of fun to be had in this match.
Yeah. But what do you feel about the result, sir? With the baby faces going over Damage Control.
You know what I thought about as Becky delivered the manhandle slam to Bayley through the table off the second rope, right? The Rock never hit the rock bottom from the second rope. He never hit an avalanche rock bottom, I don't think. He didn't have to. I don't know. That made me think. You ever seen The Rock deliver a rock bottom from any height other than the ground? No.
Yeah. That, and also, I don't know if you noticed, but like, I don't know if like they were trying to like make sure like that they got it right, but like it took quite some time for that finish to happen, to the point where I thought like someone was coming to break up the pin, because I was like, Kyrie's just sitting in the corner. I forgot with Io and Asuka, where I was like, is someone gonna come break this up? Like, this can't be the finish, right? And then the 3 happens, and I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of anticlimactic, but also it at least plays to the story that I think they're heading in, and that's Damage Control is gonna beat the hell out of Bayley and kick her out of her own group like Edge.
So to your to argue your dad's point and your point and my point that Damage Control needed this win, I think Bayley losing it for the team progresses the story of, hey, you're the weakest link in this chain with Io Sky, Kairi Sane, Asuka, and even Dakota Kai. You're like, hey Bayley, look over there.
Yeah, even Dakota Kai, I've seen whenever people post like the translations for whenever like Io or Kairi or Asuka are speaking in Japanese, and like Dakota's there to supposedly translate to Bayley. She's not telling her anything of like any truth whenever like they speak about like her in Japanese. Like Bayley will be like, "Oh, what did she say?" And like Dakota would just lie and be like, "Oh, they said everything's fine" or something like that. And it's like,
ooh, goodness,
gonna be an interesting.
The baby faces pick up the win.
Yeah. Moving on to our next match. It is the Intercontinental Championship on the line. Champion Gunther defending against The Miz.
Against babyface Miz, who's won Intercontinental Championship reign from tying for the most Intercontinental Championship reigns with who, Jack?
I don't know. Are they allowed to say the name?
I got the sense, I saw somewhere online that they did say the name. I didn't hear it. I just heard, hey, he's one away from tying the record.
Yeah, I saw that too, where people were saying that like they said it, and I was like, I don't remember hearing Jericho's name, but apparently they did.
No, but honestly, like, could Miz win the Intercontinental Championship for Gunther? I think the company, for as much as it's changed, is still petty enough to want to erase that from the record.
Yeah, that was when they brought that up. It kind of added like a bit of element to the match to me, where I was like, okay, well now it's just not like straightforward. This is a Gunther like easy victory. Like as soon as they brought that up, I'm like, with how much this company loves records, I could imagine them giving it to the Miz. As much as like I didn't want it because of the reign that Gunther's been on. Not only do I want it to continue, but there's in a sense better options for like him to lose it to, in a sense, like that could be either better storytelling or like making someone look dominant by defeating him, so but I actually like the fact that it added that sort of surprise element to it, where instead of just thinking, all right, Gunther's winning this, I was like, okay, well now I need to watch this a bit closer than before,
and Gunther needs to watch Miz a bit closer.
Yeah, that happens especially a lot in this match.
What do you think of it?
I thought it was fairly decent for the most part. It wasn't, the best Gunther match, but it was serviceable for the story it was telling,
Yes. Was it the best? Was it, anywhere near the best Gunther match? Maybe not. Was it one of the best Miz matches we've seen in a minute? I think so.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny how at times like certain heel actions can be considered justifiable, in certain situations, because as you mentioned, Gunther has to watch the Miz closely. There's a spot where the turnbuckle pad gets removed, the ref gets distracted trying to put it back on, and Miz hits him with a low blow to the cheers of the crowd, surprisingly.
We're in a post-Eddie Guerrero world, absolutely, and I credit to Miz for sort of gaining that kind of like, what Cody Rhodes called it in the press conference, that equity, And what I really liked was, in that spot you described, he kicks him twice. The first one was towards the knee that he's been working on all match, so he lets go of the sleeper. And then the second kick is a swift kick to the nether regions.
Yeah. And
for a very close 2.8.
Yeah, that one very much surprised me. And then we saw the spot where Gunther hits that top rope splash, and then he locks in the Boston Crab, and he actually changes it up to like more of the sense of what was it called? Not the Walls of Jericho. It was the other one where it looked a bit more painful. I forgot what he called that one. Was it the Lion Tamer?
It's the Lion Tamer.
Yeah, he did something similar to that, where he starts putting the knee into the Miz's back, and that's what gets him the tap.
Yeah, and so even if we don't say his name, we're going to remind everyone who has the record for the most Intercontinental Championship wins.
Yeah. But overall, a real, a good match from Gunther and The Miz. Had a bit more
Yeah.
surprise element than a lot of people were thinking, but Gunther's still reigning strong. I wonder just how long he's gonna hold it.
I wonder too.
Yeah, gonna be interesting to see. Maybe we can get something like he drops it at the Rumble, and later that same night he wins the Rumble.
Ooh. You think you want Walter to win the Rumble in what has become a very crowded main event roster?
Yeah, definitely. But speaking of the main roster getting crowded a lot, we got a match showcasing two of their one of them is newer, obviously coming up from NXT. We got Santos Escobar versus Dragon Lee.
Yeah, this should have been Santos Escobar versus Carlito, but Santos Escobar hurt Carlito.
Yeah, and Dragon Lee is coming to step in for both. I think it was technically supposed to be Mysterio, then it went to Carlito, and now it's Dragon Lee stepping up for both guys.
Yes, Mysterio got a knee surgery. Santos Escobar says, "I hope you never come back." Goodness. And goodness, Jack, watching this match, watching Dragon Lee, it's impossible for me to believe it's the same Dragon Lee we saw lawn dart himself in that match against Shingo. Remember?
Yeah, and got to give credit where credit's due. It's also surprising to see a match like this happening. Compared to the previous years. It was funny. Just this past week, I was talking with a good friend of ours, Ricardo. I was showing him this post where it was highlighting one of the worst Raw episodes that happened back in 2019, and I was like, man, it's crazy to see the stuff that happened on this episode, but it makes me so much more happier that we're in a much better place than that time of wrestling, where we weren't watching because of the stuff they were doing, and now it's you get a match like this on the card.
I was listening to Deadlock, and James says they were looking at wrestling from SmackDown from '04 or '02, and they were making the joke that how well the paces, how well the stories were built, and followed up on. Right? He goes, "It's the same people. I can't comprehend how somebody who got it so right 20 years ago would get it so wrong for so long, but we're kind of coming back to it." I don't know why we left it, but this is a really neat chapter in the story, right?
Yeah.
Because Santos Escobar and Carlito will tie it up. And Santos Escobar and Rey will tie it up. And this is a neat chapter 2 in this cool saga.
Yeah. And overall, what'd you think of the match, sir?
It was good. It was good. It was. I think it was a good showcase for Dragon Lee. Santos Escobar is a meanie, and he does meanie things like grab at the mask. How dare he, Jack? Doesn't he know?
Well, he doesn't know, because if you remember when he came back or when he came to NXT, you remember he brought his mask back for that cruiserweight tournament, and I don't know if you remember, but his dad got mad at him about it because he was like, "You lost your mask in Mexico. You're not supposed to wear it again." And he was like, "It's for a story." He was like, "It's for a story."
Brought it back after losing it too, but nobody batted an eye at that.
But I like this match as well, and I would be open to seeing more sort of showcases like this for talent that they plan on calling up.
Yeah,
just mini introductions to these people, so you get to know them a bit before they fully show up.
Whispers and rumors say that perhaps Santos Escobar is going to have a couple of new guys at his side. Perhaps the Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo in NXT.
Interesting.
Yeah, going against the LWO. Perhaps warring halves of the LWO.
Yeah, because I wonder what happens to the two other members that have been with him, from the Legado del Fantasma days.
Joaquin Wilde and I don't remember. They changed his name.
Yeah, they changed his name, so I don't remember, but it was Raul Mendoza.
And you hardly see him fight, right? Like I've never. It's been so long. I'm worried.
Yeah, it's funny because recently, as you saw, I did a video on the Grizzled Young Veterans who got their release, and I went back and watched. As a part of that video, I was talking about their match at Vengeance. Wait, no, not Vengeance Day. Stand and Deliver 2021, where they faced off against MSK and Legado del Fantasma, and I was watching. I was like, man, it kind of sucks that these two aren't featured more when you see just how good and fluid they are as a tag team. And the one thing I mainly talked about in that when talking about that match was that a lot of people saw them in that triple threat and were like, oh, they're going to be the guys to take the pin. They're not going to do much. And that match did a great job of showcasing their talents and showing like, hey, this is why you should take them seriously, So
we will not be overlooked.
Yeah. So I'm hoping for the same, where it's like with a tag division that needs more names to it, that needs to see more defenses in it. You got a team right there who hopefully can find some footing without Santos Escobar there.
Yeah.
But moving on to our next match, the women's world
can I say one more thing about Santos Escobar?
Yeah.
He wins, and he's a big meanie, and everyone's booing him. And I really like Chicago really laying it into him, right? But he looks dead to the camera. Like, looks down the barrel of that camera. And he talks to Ray. None of us are lip readers, but he says something with his mouth that you think you can read, but at the last part of that sentence, he says Ray. And he points at Dragon Lee. It's to say this is you or this is because of you. And I really like that too.
Yeah. Especially because, as we've seen through various segments, a lot of these times it seems like these wrestlers don't even watch the show they're on.
Ray's watching while he's rehabbing my knee.
It was funny. The moment I saw that announcement of his surgery, like obviously I was like, oh man, I hope he gets better. But the first thing I thought about was my childhood of all those "do not try this at home," and it's like about like I've had like 5 surgeries on my knee, and I was like, I wonder what the number is now from the time they recorded those back in when I was like a child. I wonder what it's like now. Like, what's the number at?
All I could think of are the podcasters and YouTubers who like to go, my knee. That's their Rey Mysterio impression. Like, there's always that phrase you say if you're going to do an impression, and the Rey Mysterio is, my knee.
Oh, man. Well, like I said, moving on to our next match, the Women's World Championship, Rhea Ripley defending against Zoe Stark. I do not know how this match came to be, because like I said, I do not watch the weekly shows.
Nope. Zoe Stark can press somebody and beat somebody, so good for her.
What do you think about this match, sir?
This is good. This one, a little more one-sided. No, it was good. Zoe Stark, let's see, I'm trying to think of any spots that sort of resonated with me, that stuck with me. Here we are, 3 days later, right?
I will say one thing I like that you see, obviously, in a lot of matches, because it's not like there's many women that, match Rhea in size and strength, is that whenever she's facing off against, these smaller opponents, she works as a real good base for a lot of their moves,
Oh, absolutely. She really throws herself into them,
Yeah, and then she doesn't get it here. I know she got it another time, but I'm always surprised that she's able to, go through and help Zoe with the Z360 so much. Like, because I look at Rhea, I'm like, she's too tall. Like, there's no way it can, like, work or look as fluid, but, like, she always finds a way to, like, help her through it and, like, make it actually look good rather than, like, convoluted because she's so tall.
That's funny. I wish more people helped Rhea with her riptide. It's you can get them up higher. Come on. Really, really lay it in there.
Yeah.
There's one spot off the top rope I don't think goes according to plan.
I think I remember that too.
Yeah.
And then I did like the finish where she did the headbutt first to transition into the riptide, because she tries to get it in before, and Zoe counters out of it. So this time she gives her a big old headbutt to make sure that she's out of it so that she can actually get the Riptide in for the win.
Nice. Yes.
But overall, pretty decent match for the most part.
Yep.
I don't know what plans they have for Rhea going forward, but of course, another thing to expect when you come into the end of the year times is, not to say it's necessarily a bad thing, but it's a lot of phoning it in until Rumble and then Mania season.
Goodness.
But getting to our main event, the opposite of what I was saying about War Games at the beginning, we've got something that many people would argue has been going on for too dang long. That is the Judgment Day. Finn Balor, Damian Priest, Dominic Mysterio, JD McDonough, plus Drew McIntyre facing off against Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Randy Orton returning as what they've announced and advertised going into this match, Jey Uso, and Sami Zayn.
Yes, and you put all those qualifiers on Randy Orton because throughout the night we see the baby faces clamoring in the back. Not sure if Randy's going to show up because we haven't seen him yet, Jack. I think call time's pretty early, but he isn't even there and the show has started.
Yeah. But to everyone watching this match, they're just hoping for one thing, and that this is the definitive finish and that it includes a payoff to all the various Raw main events that included the Judgment Day versus Cody, Sami, Jay, or some other babyface on Raw.
As an added wrinkle, Jey Uso is completely owning the fact that they haven't heard from Randy because he and his brother put that man out a year and a half ago when they were fighting over the tag team championship. So really nice continuity piece where Jey Uso is like, I can't be trusted. I'm just the worst. And all of my baggage is, following me everywhere. I'm going to cost this team the match because I put out Randy Orton and he's got it out for me.
Yeah. Love the continuity there. Always love some good old continuity in wrestling, especially because a lot of times it doesn't include it, which would be surprising to many, but it doesn't include continuity a lot of times.
He's not involved in this match at all, and I didn't see SmackDown, but did you see the bit from SmackDown where Austin Theory and what's his name?
Waller?
What's his name?
Grayson Waller?
Grayson Waller. They're interviewing Kevin Owens, and they say LA Knight's name. He's like, stop saying his name. You know what happens when you say a guy's name too many times? And Austin Theory's like, what do you think's going to happen if I say LA Knight? And he comes out, because Kevin Owens knows. Because Kevin Owens knows.
But like we mentioned, the baby faces are at a disadvantage going into this one because we don't know if Randy Orton's going to show up.
Mm-hmm. We also don't know what's being concocted, amongst Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre, right? There's a plan afoot, right? And they're just coming in with a plan. And they're a team, and it was really neat to see them throw their weight around and throw the baby faces all around.
Yeah. Any spots that stand out to you, sir?
So this is late in the match when most of them are in there, but there was I think a coup de grace, a flying headbutt. I don't know what JD McDonough does, but then also the frog splash, one right after the other on the baby faces.
Yeah, I remember that spot.
That was good. Oh, the triple choke slam from Drew and Damian Priest.
Yeah, I thought that looked pretty good as well.
That looked super good.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember any spots with weapons, but this one, it had its weapons, but this one very much felt like more of a very base War Games where it's about the story and using the cage to your advantage and all that. They obviously had their kendo sticks and all that, but it felt like they were really trying to utilize the cage best.
They had special black Judgment Day kendo sticks.
Oh yeah, I remember that. It reminded me of I forgot. There was another instance, I think earlier this year, where we saw colored kendo sticks, but I can't remember for who it was or what it was.
Bad Bunny's Puerto Rican kendo stick that was bestowed upon him by Savio Vega at the people of Puerto Rico.
I'm trying to think of some other spots, but
So, like
it's
the
tough.
Charlotte and Becky, will they, won't they get along and work together? Like, they also kind of, I think, forced the Cody, Seth, do we trust each other bit? You know, to have it happen so soon after the Charlotte Becky bit, which I think was a little more warranted. This one seemed a little more ham fisted.
Yeah, I
Got
get
this. Do I
that.
trust you? I mean, is there really beef between us? Because there's a guy who isn't even here yet that I think we should be a little more concerned about.
Yeah, and getting to that point when he finally shows up, I like how a lot of people like the head canon they chalked it up to is that Randy Orton doesn't want no simple he's the last man out the cage pop. He wants the pop of his entrance playing.
Woo! Well, you know what though? Also, so we're down to the last man. We're waiting for Randy Orton. Rhea Ripley's music hits. She's got that briefcase and a referee. And are they going to cash it in the middle of a War Games match?
Is it gonna happen, sir?
No, because all things have to stop when a person's wrestling music hits. Randy Orton music hits. Everybody is excited out of their seat, and the man is a huge sir.
Yeah, I noticed that too. He looked pretty big.
And he gives the camera, a big old smile on his way past it. You got to get the sense we got Happy Randy coming. There's a few different Randys. Happy Randy, the kind that does the flying toe touch, the one that does the Tasmanian Devil Yabba Dabba Do with the vintage Orton DDT. This is going to be fun. This is going to be really fun.
Yeah, and we see that when all the baby faces do that hangy DDT.
Yep.
Sorry.
Like the 100 Sheamus beats to the chest, right? Like this is that, but catered to Randy Orton.
Yeah, and then we finally get what we've been talking about all night. Jey Uso and Randy Orton. They face off, and Orton looks like he's gonna RKO him, but then they just sort of stare each other down, and that's when he hits Dominic with an RKO instead.
Yeah, that's after Jey Uso kind of pushes Randy out of the way, meets the charging Damian Priest with a super kick as if to say, hey, I got your back, man.
Yeah.
I guess it would be, hey, I got your back, yeet. Jack, I could not be more surprised at how much people were excited to chant yeet. I was like, again, we don't watch SmackDown. I'm like, what are they doing on Fridays? No, he's on Raw. What are they doing on Mondays? They were chanting yeet to his punches. Yeet. Like, doesn't that mean something else? Like to chuck or throw,
Yeah. From there we get a bunch of finishers, and then we get JD McDonough trying to flee the cage, and that's when we get a crazy spot of Sammy and Seth throwing him off so that he can eat a huge RKO from Randy.
Probably the biggest RKO to date.
Yeah.
And I love like Randy Orton celebrating it so much. He doesn't pin JD McDonough. That was intentional. I think he always intended to let Cody get the pin for the team.
Yeah, which Cody does on Damian Priest after hitting him with a crossroads. My dad was a bit surprised by that one because he was surprised that Priest was the one taking the pinfall.
And, because we're talking on Tuesday, we saw on Monday the ramifications of that throughout Monday's Raw. Damian Priest seemed really insecure and self-conscious about the team losing. Because he kind of had been either appointed the leader, he appointed himself as the leader, and he really took ownership of that loss in a way that, came off really well on screen. Like he seemed really bitter and really short with everybody, including our Truth. We'd love to see again.
I was going to mention that as a part of the final joke.
Yeah.
Because I was going to tell you, I was going to be like, well, sir, the match is wrapping up and, we get the copyright logo. That's the finish, right?
That's it. We got it. Closing out the show. We got a press conference at the hit. The baby faces hand in hand. The camera panned out in that Okada shot, that best friends hug shot. Let's go home, Chicago.
Yeah.
But wait. I heard a sound, Jack. It sounded like a TV, an old tube TV on the fritz. It can't be. No. No.
Oh, this is the part
You're wearing it.
This is the part where I wish we had visuals.
Jack, revealing the whole time. I can only see neck up, but he's revealed that he is wearing currently an AEW produced CM Punk shirt. Sir, I saw that exact design on a big flag in the crowd, in the Chicago crowd. I'm like, oh, how dirty is it to remind us all of that design, right?
Yeah.
Jack, the music's playing. The Titantron has got logos from his first shirt, his second shirt, his third shirt, right? The last shirt. And he comes out and he walks out. You want to talk about drama, Jack? Let's talk about 20,000 people out of their seat, yelling at the top of their lungs for a man who walks out, says absolutely nothing, waves, sits down, and just is there.
Yeah, I saw the funniest tweet right after. It's a bit mean, but I just found it super funny because, you mentioned everyone's going crazy, 20,000 people, and this one guy, he tweets out, watching wrestling Twitter from the outside is funny because everyone will post a video like, OMG, it's happening. And it's just a bow-legged guy in an ill-fitting white t-shirt.
Yes. I saw this. I was poring over all of the posts, Jack. I wanted to send them all to you, but I didn't know if you knew. But there was one, Jack, that went, how did this man leave AEW in August and come back looking 10 years younger than he did in August?
Oh, man. I was dying at this point, especially because I was just like, it's a bit mean, but it's true. He walks out in a white t-shirt. He walks out in the Bryan Danielson All Out 2021 fit, a white t-shirt.
He does. Oh my goodness!
The day no one thought would ever come.
No, sir. I sitting by myself in my apartment, watching this transpire. Right, like I cannot believe it. I think my mouth is wide open throughout the entirety of like 90 seconds, right?
Yeah, and it was funny because at the time I was doing stuff on my laptop. I was like talking with my dad because he was, gonna make the joke of like, oh, look, there's the copyright logo. That's all, right? And then next thing you know, we hear it and we both just go, what? Like, we're like, wait, hold on, what?
Is the TV playing along with your dad's bit, with our bit? Jack, yeah. How annoying was that guy that he gets hugged by in the crowd? Oh, if you were front row, Jack, and he's right next to you, the camera's on you, what do you say? All he does is Chicago, Chicago. And what do you say, Jack? You got that camera on you. What do you say?
I would have just started saying what I'm saying right now. I would have been like, no one thought it would happen,
Exactly. That would have been amazing, Jack.
CM Punk is back, but this guy, Chicago.
What a Chicagoan for you. Nah, you turn into Paul Heyman. You go, he's here. Best of the world. And you know it. Ooh, you should have said, hey, Tony Khan, how you doing?
Yeah, because especially since that guy's in the crowd, I highly doubt they're going to be able to, maybe, they'll probably, mute it in replay, but in the current standing, get something off your chest,
Cry me a river, Tony Khan.
But obviously there's a lot more to talk about. We won't just be like WWE, how they did it, where it left everyone confused when the show just ended right there with no sort of confrontation, no nothing.
When was the last time, Jack, you ended a WWE show with so many questions, you wanted so many answers, and you're like, I have to watch this. This is like how I felt after Infinity War, Jack.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. My dad was like, that's it? And I'm just like, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens afterwards. But
how many minutes we got left?
We got 30 seconds left.
Hey,
that's why I said we're not leaving you guys, like WWE did. We'll come back right now for part 2 because you can't just talk about CM Punk's return in only 1-2 minutes. But thank you all for joining for this episode. Tune into part 2.